Yes, thank you very much. This is James Saranga from Uganda, and this is Power Africa. We have a team down there.
So we're watching a net screen.
Do you read me?
But you were breaking up. Your connection was breaking up. So if all right, as most everybody knows, a lot of our participants are participating from Africa, and that is we've run into some problems through the lab that the internet connections are not as good as they might be in other places that people are participating from. So we're making do as best we can.
Thank you, Nicholas, and thank you, team, for the wonderful presentation that you guys have prepared and shared. Definitely, it gives me hope, or like they say, there is light at the end of the tunnel regarding this inaugural event that we are planning to have in Makerere.
So if somebody from the Power Africa team could let us know what is going on, if you're having connection problems and can't share the slideshow and speak at the same time.
Yeah, this is James, please. Yes, please. Do you get me properly?
Yes, you're hearable now, and your slideshow is up, and now it's just this great. It looks like we're ready. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
And you're muted right now. We can't hear you because your mute is on.
Yes, please. Do you get me now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. This is James Saranga from Uganda, and this is Power Africa. I have a number of colleagues. That is Denise Wanyana, a consultant in renewable energy, Bachelor's of Agriculture. Betty Nakandi, a consultant in renewable energy. John Baptist, a student of renewable energy, but doing Bachelor's of Agriculture. Olga, a student too, and Naira, a consultant in renewable energy. Our team is focusing on Ethiopia. How can we electrify Ethiopia in particular? And looking at this is in line with the SDG that is focusing on energy within the whole world, but particularly for this base, we shall be focusing on Ethiopia. We'll have Betty to go on and share something on that. Thank you very much.
Good evening, good morning, everyone. This is Nakandi Betty from Uganda. Our main goal, where we are and where we want to be, as you can see on the left side of our slides. On the left side, we have where we are, where we have the power shortage as one of the things we want to deal with. That's to electrify Africa. On the right side, we are dealing with zero blackouts to the 85 million people in Ethiopia. Then where we are on the left, poor healthcare services. That's under where we are. Then where we want to be is better healthcare services, because if there's good electrification in hospitals or health centers, there are good health services to the people. Poor quality education quality education, where we want to be is we want our children to have a good quality education, because as you see on our slides up here, the videos that we show, they show that the children are using candles for studying, and where we want to be is that every children in their families, or the students studying from electricity or using solar energy. Reproduction due to unstable electricity. We have the gap between the two, whereby there's over-reliance on fossil fuels. That is a percentage of about 82% of the total electricity generation. But fossil energy, or the coal use, is dominating, which is 41%, and the natural gas, which is 28%. Yet the world is aimed at sustainable energy sources. The costs are high, so the affordability of the renewable energy sources is still high, and the geographical location is still a problem, mostly to the 25% of the rural Africa. And the political barriers is still also an issue. The social and cultural barriers also an issue. I want to bridge this gap by sensitizing the community. That is, we want to use the habitat process. So we want to also involve in the private sectors, that's the investors, to help, that is through the government, to help us pass this the renewable sources or the renewable energies to this community. And we want the government also be committed to be supportive of us. And what's also just by handling the selling of.
So yeah, thank you. Our plan is to have to use grid technologies. We are planning on using grid technology so that people can produce their energy, consume it, sell it at some point, because they will have smart meters that can help them determine how much they've used in a month and how much they can sell to people. We are looking at having distributed storage and generation of electricity by using many sources, solar, wind, name it. Then we are looking at having transmissions of electricity all over using the current hydropower that we are using in Ethiopia. So before we bring into new systems, we are thinking of continuing with already existing hydropower as we introduce the renewable energy to the public. Yeah.
My name is Denise. And as you see, the options that we have to bridge the electricity deficit in Ethiopia, and their costs clearly show that solar and wind energy options are cheaper.
Yeah, it shows that in 2019, Ethiopia was named as one country with an electricity deficit of over 85 million unserved people. So wind energy.
Yeah, it shows that a country with an electricity deficit of 0.19. So we intend to increase production of renewable energy sources of energy in megawatts to supply all homes in Ethiopia. You realize that in energy inequality tracking report of 2021, the Ministry of Water, Irrigation and Electricity in Ethiopia, it highlighted that their geothermal potential is 5,000 to 10,000 megawatts, and the average daily capacity to produce electricity from solar is around 5.5 kilowatts per day, and the wind potential hovering around 10,000 gigawatts. So tapping into the potential that Ethiopia has would be lucrative to do away with hydroelectricity. Over to the next speaker, please. Okay.
Yes, this is Olga. Yes, what happens? We have zero emission of carbon dioxide, protected water sources, reduced dependency on non-renewable energy sources, protected environment, and electrified Ethiopia. as shown in the images.
So
Over
this
to
is
next.
an overall summary of what we want to achieve. Yeah, with electricity, we are having an impact on the social lives of the people. They are getting quality education. They are having quality medical care and health services. This in the end leads to human development, less deaths in the country. We are seeing people coming up with small businesses that in the long run develop the economy of the country. So we are looking at a developed Ethiopia with electricity. Yeah, so over to you, James.
Yeah, Baptist, you can come in.
Yeah, Baptist. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. This is Kasol John Baptist. And what do we need for such a project? The human resources, the raw materials for solar and wind energy. Human resources will include engineers, administrators, public relations officers, and investors. Raw materials for solar energy, to mention a few, the batteries, brine-tied systems from Morocco, that will be the source. And then for wind energy, will be fiberglass, iron, copper. Energy, it will be fiberglass in Ethiopia. Next slide. Next slide, please. And then the key players in this project will be the Ethiopian government first introduce policies that are favorable for increasing renewable energy usage in the country. Civil society provides finances, and then businessmen or businesses can support the move and utilize the new system in their day-to-day operations. And then the Ethiopian community needs to be open-minded and accept change. And the last one will be foundations, for example, the one from Michael Bloomberg. Next colleague.
Okay.
Thank you very much. And here we are looking at the costs. I think the last slide will have a figure that may be alarming, but here we are having a work plan. We are starting small, and with time we shall have a very successful project. So we have a total of the quantity of the energy that is required, so that at least to ensure that the whole area is having power. And we have a total cost of $375 US, 375 million US dollars. And we are looking at this still quoted the same amount to be finalizing its works. We expect support from African Development Bank and Power Africa. Still, we shall do the needful to ensure that this is reached at. And with that, I want to thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much. References are attached, and you can feel free to run to that. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Power Africa, I'm sorry about the connections that we've got with you all, where you're coming from. It was a difficult time for or experience to get all of the pieces working fine, and you did an excellent job given the infrastructure of the internet at the moment and the interconnections between us and you. But we did it, and if there's if the people can respond as best you can to what it is you've heard, assume that it was an excellent presentation if it wasn't for the internet connections. But go ahead with your feedback. Jim, you're on.
Oh, good. Okay. I'd like early in your slides, you had the picture of how different people could produce and maybe even sell the electricity. And I put a link in the chat from the World Bank about, it's a big article on mini grids, which is, I think, where you're heading with your presentation. So it looks like there's an association of African mini grid developers, which everyone might want to learn about. I think that's very interesting because and this has been a theme, I think, in a couple of the presentations, right? This idea of the smaller grid structure combined with the bigger regional structure. So that, I think, for your group is maybe to, narrow in on which level you're trying to influence, or maybe it's a combination of sort of the big governmental grid with the smaller mini grids. That kind of proposal might be very interesting for the region you're targeting, is kind of that combination of big governmental arrays with smaller mini grids, I think.
Thank you. Kurt, Lisa, Wayne, anybody else have any other additional feedback on
Sure.
this?
Yeah. I think, this has been mentioned before, how successful sort of the cell phone model was. And, we've heard that explained as, well, you didn't have to build phone lines, right? Infrastructure costs were way lower. And so, I kind of wince a little bit when I hear a lot of talk about grids, because maybe that's not where we want to start. Maybe we want to start with something even more distributed. Like, here's a harebrained idea. What if, one of the models was you had a really reliable source of power in the center of a community, and at that, little bit bigger facility, you could charge up batteries that people could take home to use overnight, and they bring them back the next day. Anyway, I think there's a lot of ways to think through it. And one of the things I was struck with again from this and other presentations is, what, all these pieces are available. There's nothing that has to be invented. And local integration, it's going to work, and you're going to train people up. It's really powerful. And one other thing in this presentation is, you've located local resources like copper and stuff. Huge deal, which brings back a thing I was going to mention. It's kind of a sort of little bit beyond maybe some of your folks, but I'm guessing there might be some manufacturers that would partner with you to help come up with, a set of components that could be, put together and replicated. And maybe even, now I'm really dreaming, get 2 or 3 manufacturers together and they come up with sort of standards to make it easy to interchange the parts and stuff like that. So anyway, I'm struck with how powerful the opportunity is and how available the pieces are, and that the complexity is not that high. And I'm just once again thinking, start with that local experiment and just build on out. But thank you.
I'll chime in here with building on what Kurt and Jim had to say. One of the things, if there's X number of people in this region in Ethiopia or in that region of the world who do not have electricity, who, how many, is it 2 million? Is it 10 million human beings? And what are the minimal electrical needs that they would have to greatly improve their lives? If you go from zero electricity, you got to go from zero to what? And what is that? Is it supplying 5 kilowatt hours a day, or 25 or 50? What is it? And what does it? I'd be interested in what does it supply? Not from our point of view, but from what is it they want? I would assume, okay, it's lights. I want lights at night. And what else? I want something to charge my cell phone. What else? Well, maybe I want a refrigerator to keep my food cool. But what else? You look around here, where I am, and there's lights and there's a computer, but what do they want? It would be really, and I know you're a lot closer to knowing the answer to that than I am, living in North America, but it would be useful to know the kilowatt hour demand. So now you know what the solar collector on the roof or the neighborhood or the hub will need. I think all the groups could benefit from that bit of information. All right, anybody else?
Well, I want to break with protocol and just throw another thing in because maybe it's interesting to people. So we live in a, we're a little tiny off-grid farm, which means, 4 panels for the main system and 2 for the auxiliary. And we do everything, but we've had to change our behavior. There's some things we only do when the sun is shining, like run the washing machine. Well, here's the point. So our refrigerator runs on propane gas because normal refrigerators do too much. But we just bought like a 50 or 60-year-old refrigerator that was working. It's got a little tiny compressor. It's like a micro power refrigerator, right? So that technology was developed and it was available, which means it could be done again. So that's a whole other thing, based on what Medard is saying is there could be like, no, we don't want to buy those. We want to work with somebody to come up with this little micro power refrigeration. Now I'm really dreaming, but I think, you folks there have the opportunity to put stuff like this together. So thanks again.
From me, it's a great presentation. And I noticed somewhere they mentioned about raw materials. And from that part of the world, most of the companies are owned by the government, where you can have most of the raw materials. So it's good to encourage the public-private sector where they can work together, where the government can ease a little bit the way these projects can work and come together, so they can have a public-private collaboration.
Thank you. One of the products that could be available to people who are now getting electricity, there's lots of plans afoot to let's get them electricity, but okay, what are they going to do with that electricity? What if you had, here's a module that will supply you with lighting and whatever else you need, assuming we find that out, whether it's refrigeration or charging for computers or whatever. You could either here's a unit, buy this unit. It's cheaper than buying all the parts together. It's just like you buy something, you get a house or whatever. That's one option. Another is here's a catalog. Here's a manual for the community to decide what they want, either as individuals. Here's 10 different types of solar collectors, in 8 different sizes that will match the needs that your family might have. And then here are the other components. So a little catalog or online site where you can order these things and get them delivered, or part of a planning manual for the community so that they're in charge and making the decisions, not, the government coming in and say, here, take this. It's what we decided for you, but turning that around. Anybody else? Kurt, Jim, Lisa, Wayne, Charles, we can transition from the presentations as soon as we think that you folks have made your feedback and contributions.
Yeah, I'm good. I thought everything was amazing. I'm very proud of the work and of the expansiveness of the opportunity. It's huge. And so I love that they're trying to tackle it in such a thoughtful way, incorporating business and community and lots of elements to completely, solve the issue.